Welcome to the Low-Carb MD podcast. No one is beyond help. No one is beyond hope.
As we have always said, we are bringing you medical information and cutting-edge science, but none of this is medical advice. Please seek out input from your own doctor.
Hello and welcome back to the Low Carb MD podcast. Tro, we're like outnumbered today. We got two cool guys here, so this is gonna be fun.
Actually, Brian, the truth is you're outnumbered. This is the Armenian takeover of the Low Carb MD podcast. You know, we have three awesome people here today, or two other awesome people here. I'm excited about this one. You want to know why, Brian? Brian, before we do that, tell everybody what's the good news. You know. Did they let you off the hook? Has California let you off the hook yet, or no?
No, it's not good news right now. You know, it looks like I'm in jail right here, right? I'm in Kansas City. I'm loving it, having a good time. They have believe it or not, they have really good barbecue here, and so nice people on Twitter were telling us where to go and stuff. So hopefully I can get out of this hotel room at some point and go up there and have fun. But yeah, in California, there's AB 2098. It's a big deal. If anyone has a chance, I have a great podcast, Tro, that's coming out on Life's Best Medicine with Patricia Lee. She's probably the most courageous person that you never heard of. She's a doctor who came out as a whistleblower, someone I trained with at USC, and she's astounding. And when you hear her, she's amazing. The downside, for people who don't know, AB 2098 is basically saying if you are in California and you're a physician and you go against the standard of care or what the standard of care is told to be, you can't question the standard basically. And you say, okay, if they say you treat this blood pressure with this medicine, you use that medicine. You don't question it. Go, well, this one seems to work, but no, you don't talk about that. So it's one of those things where the people in power, it's a freedom of speech, and there's also whistleblower protections, right? Because if we see something happening, we have a ethical and moral responsibility to talk about it. And if they're going to threaten our license, I mean, I think the opposite would be true. Is if we don't discuss risk and benefit, then we should lose our license, because that's what we're called to do. So a lot of people are starting to realize that people's rights were taken, their autonomy was taken, and these are the foundation of medical ethics. So it's going to be a tough road. But you know, my wife just informed me this morning, says, you know what? Not all doctors in California are now so basically what happens, the judge came out and said this is totally vague and it doesn't apply. So he put a stay on the enforcement of this. But apparently it only applies to the doctors who are the 5 doctors who are in the lawsuit. It doesn't apply to the rest of us who aren't in the lawsuit for whatever reason. I don't know how that actually if there's a difference between, you know, being in the lawsuit or not, and whether the constitutional rights stand. So anyways, we won't get too political, but that's basically where it stands right now, is that it sounds like they can still take other doctors' license. So I know a lot of doctors who are licensed in multiple states now because they can't take the risk of losing myself included. You can't take the risk of losing your livelihood to get into a 4-year. Yeah, we learned from Professor Noakes and Fetke, how it can be and what you have to go through to be exonerated ultimately. But when the truth's on your side, you feel confident in that. But how much money do you want to pay in legal fees to be exonerated at some point, you know?
Look, all I can say is, we got some good news that there was a stay. Hopefully, doctors' rights and their ability to speak and advocate for their patients will sort of permeate. But that's not the other. That was one reason I was excited. I was like, phew, my friend's going to be safe in California, or hopefully safe. We'll see. The other reason why I'm excited is there's two awesome people here today. We're going to hear from Sarkis Chahinian first. Okay, and certainly we have Vic Basmadjian, the beast, the low-carb beast here today, health coach. She's been on 2 or 3 times, I think. And I just want to tell everybody how this all came to be. I went to go visit Vic in Canada. Trudeau let me in. He let me through the borders, surprisingly. And when I got to Canada, I said, Vic, let's meet up. And he was like, let's go out to eat. Let's do this. I was like, no. This is let's go out to the gym. So he said, come visit me at Sako's gym in Montreal. And I came there, first of all, open arms, so professional. And, this big guy, you could see he's deadlifting 500 pounds, and he trains me for a day. Great programming, by the way, awesome programming. I could tell right away he knew what he was doing, safe and the whole time. Then we started talking about diet. And then we started talking about mental health and his life. and how he was expanding his business. There was a lot of pressure on him. And he said that he's changed his diet in the past couple months with the help of Vic. And his whole life was changed, his mental health. And so I was like, Sako, we got to get you on. I was like, you did me a solid. You trained me out in Canada, you know, when Trudeau was coming for me, and you took me into your gym, and we had a fun time. Just kidding. But I was like, we got to get you on the podcast because other people have to hear your story. You were basically rescued from gym bro dieting. So yeah. Sako, very happy to have you here.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you for giving me the time of opportunity to be able to speak on this matter. And it's quite exactly like you said. I was basically rescued from what I thought for a good 5 years of my life that I would do for the rest of my life, until I met the fine gentleman by the name of Vic, who basically went above and beyond, held my hand throughout a grueling 3 months of me basically convincing him that I was eating clean, despite him knowing very well that I wasn't eating clean. And he was quite patient until we got to a point where I fully immersed myself in this low carb, basically full-blown carnivore for the last month lifestyle. And I can't even begin to tell you the difference I've had over the last 3 months in terms of mental clarity, overall well-being and performance. So definitely a huge thank you to Vic.
Well, let's start with your journey. So walk me through. So, I mean, look, you're a beast. You know, I met you, you know, big, broad shoulders, you know, clearly could probably deadlift me, you know, deadlift my old weight, you know, plus some. So how did you get started being interested in training? How did you get started being interested? I mean, and then making it a business, you became a gym owner, which is a huge, I mean, you have to be invested in wanting to help people to do that. So walk me through, like, tell people what you grew up eating and how you got interested in wellness, and then how did it come to the point where you have your own gym?
Okay. So basically you could say I grew up the typical Armenian way. Parents didn't really understand much of what is considered healthy, what is not considered healthy. And as Vic always reminds me, it's not necessarily their fault for the lack of awareness. It's just what's been shoved down their throat for years and years by their doctors and practitioners. So you could say I had a typical upbringing: sweets, pastries every day, heavy meals every day, and unnecessary consumption of bread with rice, despite there being too much carbs to begin with. And it's just, it went on for a good 17 years, I would say, until I reached a breaking point when I was in grade 11 and just tipping over the 260-pound scale and realizing that having a history of people in my family, whether it be directly my father, uncles, grandparents who have heart conditions, this really couldn't have been an end result for me. There had to be a change. And I think it was at the end of grade 11, upon graduating from high school, that I decided that I needed to find a way to better myself. And that's the first time I signed up to a gym. And then I guess you could say because I had such a base to begin with, being a heavyset individual, I did find an affinity to lifting weights. I realized I was quite strong at it. I was quite good at it, but I hadn't cleaned up the way I was eating just yet. I was heavily relying on the fact that, well, if I train hard enough and if I just push as much weight as possible, the fat should convert to muscle, which you learn with time that it isn't the case. I think my immediate growth after then was when I started to realize that people around me were now motivated by my willingness to train, and they also wanted to train. And therefore, we started making a group, a couple of friends going to the gym together, 3-4 of us, just learning the basic ropes, figuring out what we're doing. And then long and behold, 2 years after that, by the time I had turned 20, I had enrolled myself into the YMCA personal training certification. And be it at that time, I wasn't, let's say, at my best shape, but I did think that it would be a great motivating factor to help me push even more and become wiser and more knowledgeable in the fitness industry. And so at 20, I got my first certification in personal training. I started doing some volunteer work / some basic work through the YMCA. And it wasn't until I turned 22, let's say, where I was fully immersed 3 years now into training, understanding the basics of training. And I decided to do my first competition. So that's where you could say I was 100%, as Vic and yourself clearly like to call it, fully immersed in the gymbroni lifestyle, which is just calories in, calories out. If I eat a proper amount of chicken and rice 7 times a day, I'm definitely going to be able to convert everything to muscle. And I did that. I did that for a good 3 years, just constantly preaching and believing the entire ideology of calories in, calories out, until a certain point where despite everyone telling you that eventually you'll get tired and eventually this will be too hard and eventually you will break, I did reach that point of breaking again, where I kept convincing myself that I could out-train a bad diet. So my consumption went up and more and more and more, until you find out that the amount of damage you've done metabolically is so substantial that it doesn't matter whether you're spending 2 hours or 3 hours in the gym, you're not going to be able to burn through the amount of sugar you're basically loading every single day through eating junk food. So that was really the majority of my journey leading up to say 26 years old. And then COVID decided to make an entrance into the scene. And
did you have the gym? Sako, did you have your gym? So you started, so yeah. When did you open it? So you're invested, you're kind of in the paradigm that we see every day. We get these Chad bodybuilders and the Beauty and the Geek podcasters who say, that calories in, calories out, make a deficit, and that's all it takes, right? So you're kind of in that realm. But you're it sounds like you like motivating people to change, and you like helping people sort of lift, and at some point you decide to make it a career. So can you tell us just a little bit about that?
So yeah, because of the bodybuilding itself, I decided to remain fully into fitness, and by fitness I'm using that word mainly to describe lifting and training, not necessarily the dietary lifestyle of it. And so that career continued for a good 5 years. I was working in numerous different gyms. I worked at Gold's Gym, whether it be the YMCA's. So I was always in different locations. And I was always very, very much into the idea of helping people change their ideology of being set that they're either out of shape or overweight, and really explaining to them that there is different outcomes, there are different possibilities. And this went on quite well, I would say, until the last 2 years. So until then, I didn't have my own business. I was practicing out of Gold's Gym. And as I was going to bring up, then COVID hit. And COVID just ended up being a lucky spark for me to decide that, because the gyms are shut down and there was a very bizarre loophole where commercial gyms can't be open, but if you're running a private facility in closed quarters where there aren't more than 2 people at the same time, you could function. And one thing led to another. I stumbled upon a quaint location. I opened that, and then I basically ran with it throughout the first year of COVID. So that's how I had started my own business venture of being a gym owner.
Wait, so Communist Canada, oh my God, I can't believe I'm saying, Jack, edit that out. So Communist Canada, Jack, edit that one out too. They let you open up a gym during a pandemic?
Yeah, so there, like I said, it was baffling because of that one loophole, that closed quarters, there aren't more than 2 people training at the same time. You would have to follow the guidelines of sanitary information, which is normal amongst all gyms. But confined corners, like I said, you were allowed to function one at a time under the guidelines of a health practitioner, athletic therapist, or just a personal trainer, as long as it was in group training. So yeah, I took it as an opportunity to not let the system win. And I had noticed my first reason for doing it was I noticed my immediate mental health declining immensely. And so I made a post. I just made a quick shout out to whoever felt the need to come and exercise. This was when I had just launched, and I was I was willing to give free workout plans, free motivation, whatever it was necessary to get people to move and not feel like they couldn't do their fitness. Because for me at the time, the gym was all I knew. It was just 2 hours of lifting and being immersed in that set lifestyle.
And during that time, were you kind of more the power lifter type, or were you doing more like physique type stuff in these competitions?
I cleverly chose to omit the part where post bodybuilding, for whatever reason, my body got immediately turned off by the restricted calorie, the unhealthy, I would very openly and confidently say unhealthy eating lifestyle of doing bodybuilding. And so I completely switched boards, and I decided to just revert back to just being a broader, stockier, stronger set fella. And through there, I decided to pursue a certification and being a licensed powerlifting coach as well, just to be able to say that I could do best of both worlds. But yeah, throughout the last year to 2 years, it was a lot more heavily relying on powerlifting rather than bodybuilding.
Yeah, and it's remarkable that, the one thing you bring up that I really want to touch on is during COVID, we closed the gyms, but we kept open the fast food. My friend here in San Diego, or when I'm at home in San Diego, I'm in Kansas City right now, but when I'm at home, they closed his gym. So the poor guy, he was like you, he's just trying to, train 1 or 2 people at a time, really trying to help people. And the strip club right next door to him was packed with cars. You're looking at like, wow, what's going to be better for people, and how does this fit? And then also the other thing, the loopholes, like you talked about, is I know another gym owner, he had a physical therapist in his gym. And if you had a physical therapist in your gym, then all of a sudden they weren't contagious, so they could have more people in there if you had a physical therapist. But if you didn't, it's a gym and you can't. So you just see all the bureaucracy and how frustrating it is for small business owners, someone like you who's trying to get their business up and running, and you have to deal with that on top of trying to find clients and trying to help people.
Yeah, it felt like you had to jump through hoops. I had numerous clients scared. They wouldn't want to come. They were unsure if what happens if anyone that tells or anyone sees, am I allowed to do this? Am I not allowed to do this? So not only were we juggling the lack of exercising, which I personally believe is an amazing factor for mental health and dopamine and serotonin levels, but then you're also adding in the anxiety of people now being afraid to full on leave their houses, which I personally put my foot down, and I decided, look, I'll take the chances. Whoever needs to or wants to, genuinely feel free to come in. We'll do it our way. And through the grace of a higher being, or let's just say luck, whoever wants to use that word, we were fine for the entire year. We ran and we did our work.
So you mentioned mental health, and when we had met, you talked to me a little bit about that. So do you mind sort of sharing, and you don't have to if you don't want to, but sort of you experienced some changes in your own mental health, and then how did you end up meeting Vic? How did this all happen? So you're a trainer, you got a gym, and bro dieting, and how does it all come together here?
So I think in terms of the mental health, and I will talk about it only because I do feel like it's a hush subject that most people try to push under the rug and they don't want to talk about it. And if any one person can take my openness as a sign that they can be also open, so be it. For me, it was just and I hate to make bodybuilding the villain. This is not fair of me to do, but I'm speaking of my experience, and I know many others who will associate the said experience. There is a massive amount of psychological draining, and you just genuinely feel very fragile after going from a certain peak and convincing yourself that this is how I have to be, this is perfection, to coming back down to normality, and then realizing that your entire identity, everything that you molded yourself to be is an illusion. It's a fraud. It is unhealthy, both physically, mentally, emotionally. So the more time that passed after my bodybuilding, the more I put myself into this rut of the opposite of being, I hate bodybuilding. I hate this idea of eating dry beef, chicken, and rinsing my beef under a strainer after I've cooked it because, well, I want less fat because I can't have fat on my body. And so it was years worth of downtrend. And even, I can even say, even once I had opened the gym, I had thought of it as a place where I could find my peace, but that energy still revolved around me because that was the only idea I had. When I had clients come in and ask me for nutritional help, I didn't know better. So it was just constant reminders of that lifestyle until I met Vic's son. So me and Vic met through the help of his son, because his son reached out to me. He wanted some training tips. He wanted to start working out. He came in, and I'm assuming it went well enough where the information was relayed to Vic. But throughout that information being relayed to Vic, his son was trying to explain to me this idea of what an actual keto diet is. And for me, and Vic will definitely laugh when he hears this, it was how much cheese can I eat? For me, it was a joke. This entire keto idea was a joke, because I was like, can I just eat a pound of cheese every day and still lose weight? That's what basically you're telling me. And his son was laughing, and we went back and forth. And then long and behold, I get a wonderful visit by Vic himself, who looks at me and says, look, you got questions. I'm here to answer your questions, and perhaps I can teach you a different way from the Gym Brony diet. And we had our clash in the beginning. The first time we met, I told him, I'm like, Vic, listen, it's all about calories in, calories out. If I eat less than what I'm burning, I'll lose weight. And Vic just laughed, and he did his mature, humble behavior. And he was like, you'll learn. In time, you'll learn. And what are we, 8 months now, where you and me had our first encounter. And I think my entire aspect on nutrition and just overall health has changed because of that first encounter that I had with Vic.
Yeah. And that's so important. That's so important, because, Vic could have went in with an attitude, so you don't know what you're talking about, cause conflict, but saying, hey, look, I'll be patient with you, try it and see what happens. Like, I think that's the approach. That's such a great approach. And Vic, I'd love you to chime in on this. And because it's so important to be able to say, okay, I'm the genius and you don't know anything. And, people get arrogant about it, because just because it worked for you, Vic, doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone. So you start looking and going, okay, how do I reach someone? It's just like religion or anything else. You're trying to say, hey, I think this will help you, but it's hard to have that approach of helping someone without being a jerk.
Yeah, it was. You know what? I mean, as long as you see that there's at least that open window for the willingness to change, you got to be patient. You can't expect everybody to just, be at whoever else's level from right at the beginning. And so you need to be patient. You have to give them the time. As long as the most important component to me is there was the willingness to listen and at least give it a try. Okay. And this is what I a lot of times have a hard time with people not even trying. So this young man was at least willing to try. And he openly told me, he says, like he said, it's all about this, it's all about that. And I don't think I'll be able to change and whatever. And I said, well, let's go one step at a time and let's see where it takes us. So, 9 months later, I'll let him continue.
Yeah. So okay. So you're Sako. You're a reformed gym bro, but you don't know it yet. Okay. Yeah. So you're a reformed gym bro and you don't know it yet. And so walk me through. So you meet his son. You meet him. He comes in. You drink some coffee. Okay. And so how does it work? How do you, so what does he first say to you? What does he have you first do? Like, where does your nutrition go from and where does it go to?
I think there wasn't necessarily a linear progression. It was quite a slippery slope in the beginning, especially because there was some culture shock for me. I did remain in that negative mindset that there's no way I will do this. There's no way I'll let go of everything I know. And again, it comes back to the open-mindedness of Vic just saying, look, we'll do it one meeting at a time. We'll do it one sit down at a time. Write to me what you're eating. Tell me what your weekly log is looking like. And so it was genuinely, we trained one day, and by his second meeting or even by his third meeting, it was a full, you know what, I'm willing to try this. And I think the best way for me to try this is through the guidance of a coach. And so it almost became a running joke between us where the trainer meets a coach, and now the trainer needs the coach, and it's a mutual helping of one another. And we really started off baby steps. Vic didn't tell me to change anything I was eating. He wanted a good week to 2 weeks worth of logging what I was eating, what it looked like, so he could just understand what we're working with. And I think one of the things that really stood out on my weekly log sheets were the copious amounts of chewy bars that I was pounding, under the misconception that it's 100 calories. So even if I eat 9 of them, I'm still at 900 calories. How bad can 900 calories be, right? Until you do a little bit of a deeper dive in and you realize there's so many more layers to it. So we started off with the weekly check-ins, and then it almost became like a challenge, and not through any mean or negative place, just a very competitive point of view that Vic is coming every week. He's seeing his results. He's getting stronger. He's getting better. Now it's my turn to step up to the plate and bring to him the same level of energy as he was bringing to me. And it was constant availability from his end. I would ask him the wildest questions, the weirdest questions. And through this engagement of mutual well-being, Vic basically explained to me the amount of lobbying that goes on by these major companies to push this agenda of what health is actually supposed to look like, and how much of the actual damage is being pressed down. And I think I made it a mission for myself to really submerge myself into understanding the benefits of cutting sugar and just being healthier as an individual.
Can I just take a second here, because you talked about propaganda and damage, and it's very difficult for people to understand what regulatory capture means. Regulatory capture is what you're talking about. It means when the industry has influenced the science which influences the policy which influences the industry. And it's very difficult because nothing is ever linear. You have to sort of connect the dots a little bit. It's very hard for people to understand. But if it's all about calories, explain to me, because even Sako, in your old way of thinking, if you took 2,000 calories of alcohol when you're training, and you go compare that to 1,000 calories of protein and 1,000 calories of fat from an animal, a fish, meat, and you compare the two over a long enough time, what happens when you're training daily? What will happen? 2,000 calories of alcohol and carbohydrate versus 2,000 calories of protein and fat. What happens in 1 month?
I think you'll see a substantial growth in your abdomen area if you're pounding down 2,000 calories worth of alcohol.
So how did they convince us? Because it's so easy with a simple thought experiment to know that this is silly talk, right? And what happens if I told you I could give you 1,000 calories of alcohol and 1,000 calories of carbs, and it'll make you eat more, right? Versus 1,000 calories of protein and 1,000 calories of fat, which will make you eat less. What if I told you that? I did a little cruel accounting. I said, hey, look, this is what you're going to expect. So how did we fall for this?
I think from what I understood, and from the constant lecture I do on the community, through the community, whether it be Twitter or directly through Vic, by like I said, the endless amount of questions I asked the poor man, there's just so much energy placed on explaining to people how high fat, let's even remove the alcohol, remove the carb aspect. I think there's so much energy and money expensed on this misinformation of how you should stay away from fat, and you can't eat this much fat, you can't eat this many meat products, you can't eat this many eggs, that it's like fear mongering to a certain extent, where the average consumer is like, well, I don't want to have any more health problems than what I already have, and therefore I'll just stick to the easier thing that's being pushed down my throat by media and consumer reporters.
Yeah, I mean, so it's sort of like this campaign, but as a trainer, you went through certification, you went through bodybuilding competitions, you probably tracked, right? So people tell me, well, look at the bodybuilders, they track so meticulously. You know what tracking does? It makes you pay attention to everything that you eat. So the any effect has nothing to do with counting the calories. It's just paying attention to what you're putting in your mouth.
Yep. And
thinking about that is the effect. That is the benefit of calorie counting. There's nothing else. There's nothing else there. So it's just like saying, pay attention to what you're eating. But what they did along the way is make it like all food is the same. And it's not. And we all know that. My little thought experiment, you're like, it's so clear to you. So how did your diet change? I know I could tell Brian's trying to get a question in and I'm yapping so much here, but how did your diet change over the last 6 months? And what impacts did you see on your exercise performance, your body composition, your mental health? What happens next?
Listen, there are so many levels to how my life has improved that as I've been told numerous times, the weight loss, the change in physical appearance is just a side effect. It's not necessarily what kept me motivated. What kept me motivated is I have not slept as well as I sleep ever. The last 4 months where I've really dialed in, let's say the last 4 months where I've really been submerged into this lifestyle, my sleep has been night and day. My cardiovascular, my respiratory rate, my heart rate, just day to day has improved. My mental health, which I preach the most of my clients, I talk to mental health about. The minute I removed this pounding of granola bars, this constantly, I'll have 5 fries and I'll have the sandwich and it's fine, I'll only eat 2 pieces of pizza. The minute I started removing all these deterrents, I've noticed a clear change in overall fogginess and grogginess. I'm just sharper, I'm just mentally happier, which it sounds tacky, and I'm not lying when I say I don't ever want to feel like how I felt 6, 7, a year ago, 2 years ago. This cleanup that I've done, it's almost like when you clean up a computer, when you get rid of a lot of the junk files, it comes back to bare and you need to build it back up. But once you see it perform the way it performs, and for someone like me, especially who takes pride in the heavy lifts that I like to do. You kept mentioning it. Yes, the 500-pound deadlifts, the 300-pound bench presses, 500-pound squats. These are things that were super important to me. And this entire time, you're taught this concept in the books by the internet people that, well, you need carbs. Without carbs, there's no way that I'm going to be able to sustain these difficult workouts. But lo and behold, I'm still here, lifting 500 plus pounds, still doing my 1 hour workouts, not feeling any less motivated. Au contraire, I would say I'm feeling less fatigue, less drained during the exercise. My recovery time has been better. And the cherry on the top, let's say the side effect, the secondary effect is 7 months ago, I was sitting at my heaviest, 265 pounds. And no way, shape or form the proper image of a healthy personal trainer. And today, 7 months later, I've hit 220, 218 on a good day. I know Vic's still unhappy because we promised we would get to that 215 line, but to be able to lose 50 plus pounds and still maintain the strength and the energy that I had eating carbs, I think has been a revolutionary 7 months in my life.
Yeah, that's a huge point. I mean, you make that huge point. Just looking at, you're a big buff guy. You got a ton of muscle mass. So if we took off 10 pounds of muscle, are you going to be happier and healthier? Of course not.
No. I would like to keep as much muscle as possible. And I know Vic's laughing because we constantly joke about the fact that the scale is not important. Let's focus on the waistline. And he explained to me how
we still like to see it move, right? We still like to see it move, but when you're doing the right stuff, you trust in the process at some point. And I just love what you're saying about the mental health aspects of it. And I laugh and I'm smug about this because this McAlpine guy, what was his name? Tro, that said I need to lose my life.
Alistair, yeah. So just so you know,
and he's been on the wrong side of everything in the history of medicine. He's on the wrong side. That's my opinion.
Tell people what it is. So when we first started this podcast, Brian, we were talking to each other. We were just, because we didn't really
We're having a public Twitter discussion about it. Tro raised a point and I jumped on it. And we were both right, by the way. Tro and I were both right. How often does that happen? Hardly ever.
No, but all we said was maybe there's more to dieting. Maybe this diet that prevents seizures and migraines, it has positive improvements on mental health. I saw somebody with a gambling addiction just stop. He's like, I don't care anymore. Alcohol, stop. And
smoking, pornography. That's something that Tro brings up, pornography. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about, man? That's crazy. But then If that's your stress relief, just like for some of us, it might be a cookie or a beer or whatever, you know, or getting a massage, you know, these things that we just, if we lose the mental health aspect, because, you know, one of the things is, you two won't know it, but Fat Fiction, the movie, I had 5 patients up there and they all reversed their diabetes or came off meds and got their blood pressure, got metabolically healthy. But they said, you know what? And at the time it was controversial, so they cut it out of the movie, believe it or not. But they all said, you know, my mental health, I'm smiling, I'm laughing, my relationships are better, I'm getting along better with people at work, I'm not annoyed all the time, I'm not on edge. And I'm like, this is really amazing. But at that time it was controversial because McAlpine didn't like it. You know, the establishment doesn't like us saying, hey, we could get people better without throwing 20 drugs at them. And it's so, you know, like we talk about this regulatory capture. That's exactly what happens is people say, you can't get better without a drug. Well, it wasn't a deficiency of a drug that caused your depression. Right now, I'm not anti-medication. I've had very good results with some medication with people with profound depression. But what I do find is when we get there, what I do find is when people come to Tro and myself, and they're already on antidepressants, anti-anxiety medicines, when we intervene and start working on lifestyle, sleep, stress, not hating the world, working out, those kind of things, it's dramatic how many people. I just stopped 2 medicines on one of my good friends from high school who reached out to me. You know, his anxiety, his mood, and his sleep are better, you know, and you go, man, just changing lifestyle and cutting back on the beer a little bit. You know, it's dramatic what we can see.
So I can't agree with you more. I mean, you know, when we brought up the idea that diet can have an impact, you know, on mental health, you know, this is 5 years ago, 6 years ago, you know, it was heresy. And now it's almost commonplace. Now we have a not-for-profit Metabolic Mind, and hopefully we'll get the brains behind that are going to come on here soon, and maybe on Life's Best Medicine as well. And, you know, talking about how metabolic health impacts the mind. But here you are, you're physically changing and you're mentally changing, and, you know, so and your performance isn't changing. So what do you?
Tro, I'm sorry, I'm gonna butt in just for one. I'm gonna pretend like I'm in New York and I'm Armenian, but
yeah. You can go ahead.
I'm honorary today, right?
Yeah.
So
you did it right.
I just want to make one quick point. You know, you're a guy. Your whole life is dedicated to the gym, dedicated to helping other people. You're working out. You're not lazy. You're putting the time in at the gym, and you're not getting results, right? You're getting worse, and you're getting metabolically sicker. So this whole idea that said, oh, you just have to exercise more. Right. All you do is out exercise that, and you're destroying your body. You're getting frustrated, you know, injured because you're trying to push it as hard as you can without saying, okay, maybe I have to change a different lever. So there's so many people getting bad advice, and that's why it's frustrating. It's not like you're sitting at a desk job all day. You're a guy who is a trainer and you're gaining weight. It's not like you're not, you know, you don't like exercise, you know. I mean, the big problem we have with a lot of people is that they underestimate the benefit of exercise. Also, on the other side, they go, oh, I'll change my diet and I want to lose weight, but I don't want to exercise. But if you want to be healthy, you got to do it all. You have to pull all the levers you can.
Yeah. It's a point that you guys brought up in terms of beating certain addictions, whether that mental challenge in a certain way or not. For me, it was, and I spoke in private with Vic about this in the beginning, and it was, he told me in due time, you will notice the different results that come through it, but the sheer level of confidence increase that I've had, and we're talking about on all fronts, whether it's my confidence in socializing with people, whether it's my confidence in a room, whether it's just, you just get this sense of well-being, and I can't put my finger on it in any other shape, way, or form other than saying it's through the change that I've made on how I see food and how I interact with food and how food has impacted my life. It's been a great change.
And also knowing Vic makes it easy. I see the food he cooks. I'm like, man, I want to move to Canada, Tro. They won't let me in there, but man, I would like to move there and eat with Vic a few times.
That's why I said we got to meet in the gym. I knew if he made a nice big dinner that it was going to be all done, and you know. So I was like, no.
So wait. Did you work Tro out? Was he soft, or did he pull his weight over there?
No, he pulled his weight. He definitely pulled.
Did he cry about his neck and all that stuff, or did
I didn't even have to.
No, Vic, what do you think, man?
Adjustments.
No,
Vic,
man.
were you there?
Yeah, I was there, man. It was pretty solid, man. I got to say.
Look, I'm getting better. I'm getting better,
man.
You can see that.
Yeah, you're getting stronger.
You know, it's still a little soft on the right, but
Bro,
you know.
I'm old and I don't have all those problems, man. I got
I don't
gray
know,
hairs.
man.
I'm falling apart, and like I'm still like
Don't
hanging in there, man.
don't get your car totaled on 995. You know, that's all I could tell you.
Yeah, but that's true too. I've talked to a lot of people. As a matter of fact, I was talking to a good friend of mine this morning. We're here for a wedding, and he said his wife, man, she got into a car accident, and mentally she was gone for years. I mean, because she couldn't work out, she couldn't do certain things, and the toll it takes on you when you can't do those things, it's really, especially a guy like you who's really fit. Because I knew when we were in Denver, I knew you were struggling. I was like, man, it's brutal when you have an injury and you want to go out and do it and you can't, and it holds you back.
Yeah. And then the accident that happened after was, anyway, bottom line is I'm not giving up. That's it. Sako was working me out. He was like, he made me do double on the left and half the weight on the right, but it worked out just fine.
I think Sako winked though when he said you worked out hard. He winked at me a little bit, so I'm not sure.
You went easy on me, man. You went easy on me.
We'll play back the video. No, that's awesome. But that's awesome. How much fun all you guys getting together, and that's community. That's a huge deal, And I think Vic, that's what you bring to the table. You build community, you uplift people, you're always encouraging people, and and it's funny that Sako, you were training him too, right? And so you were doing the physical part to teach him, and he's teaching you the nutritional part, and you put those two together and you crush it both.
I would tell you, I almost felt bad some days. We had hour-long sessions, and I would tell you a good 30 to 40 minutes of it is just me asking Vic these questions on how many eggs I can eat and how much ground beef I can be eating, and he would just look at me and he'd be like, just eat. Just
don't worry about it. Don't overcomplicate it. Just eat till you're good.
And this. And I kept asking him. I was going to go on vacation. I felt like I wouldn't be able to control myself on vacation, but he still had faith. And I think, and I don't say this lightly, and I won't get emotional, and it's not to praise anything more than what it is, but the between the time that I met Vic to where I am now, whether you want to thank that entirely to ketosis or cleanup of my attitude and just my overall obsession with food, I would tell Vic on how I ate 60 mini donuts, and then I followed those 60 mini donuts up by 14 deep fried cheese rolls, and I have been able to completely silence that side of my brain who has a compulsive need to just overeat and just destroy all the food that I see in front of me. And I wholeheartedly believe that in my 29 years, and I say 4 months because these last 4 months are the really cleanest, most calculated, well done 4 months. These last 4 months have been the healthiest and overall the best the months that I've lived. So thank you to Vic to being patient and allowing me to grow into this person who now understands that calories in, calories out is definitely not the outcome.
Well,
that's awesome, man.
And if I can, let's not make this about Vic. It's the reality is you did all the work. You paid it back to me on the way you've been training me, right? So you were just as patient with me on the training end as I was to you on the nutritional end, right? So I remember when I told you, I don't think I can do this, and I don't think I can do that, and I don't think I'll ever be able to do this. And you kept giving me the courage to say, you know what? You'll be surprised of what you'll be doing in a few months from now. And so same kind of concept, right? So you had just as much patience with me training as I did with you on the nutrition. So one hand fits another. So, and again, I'll go one step further. Let's not make it about either one of us. It's about these two gentlemen on this podcast that if they weren't around and what I've learned from them, and I didn't write this stuff. I didn't invent this stuff. Okay. This is all, I'd say 95% of my education comes from these two gentlemen and this podcast. And so kudos to them, because without them, I would not be in where I am today. So thank you guys.
Yeah. And I think, and it's so kind of you to say that, but we're just the transducers, honestly, I think Jason Funk saved my life. And, so many of these guys, Ben Bickman, like the influence they've had just in their saying, hey, look, here's what matters. Here's what's important. Here's what you got to focus on. And I think, you know, some of these guys, they're just so overlooked at the contribution they're making to, you know, Professor Noakes. He just, Tro, we have to get him on to talk about this, but he's looking at these, you know, they said you have to, and I've been talking about too, zone two training. You want to burn fat. That's what you got to do. And he's like, no, look, if you push it this much, we have the data now. And then you go, okay, now we have to look at that and say, okay, if you can max out at like 85%, you know, of your max, maybe we have to push these interval trainings, and maybe Ted Namath is not crazy, you know, and Ben Vikikio talking about weight training. So, you know, we all, I think when we drop the arrogance and we could all learn from each other and say, okay, how are you doing it? Let me tweak that on my workout end, and maybe you tweak your nutrition, and we put this whole package together. As a matter of fact, while we're on the topic, Tro, I'm just going to hijack this for a minute, but you know, I reach out. So I'm basically doing this new thing next. I've been doing OMAD for a year, and my weight was like non-changed, mostly carnivore. So I'm like, okay, hey Ben, let's talk about health code. Hey Jason, let's combine intermittent fasting with a higher fat ketogenic diet with healthy fat, and let's see what we can do in 2 weeks, right? Let's pump it out, and I'll be the guinea pig, and I'll go work out and do, you know, Ben's workout, and maybe change the cardio up a little bit and see what kind of results you get. And if it doesn't work, then you change to something else. You know, so I think it's great when we have great minds and we can say, oh, what you're doing is good on your side. Because I think ultimately, right, at least for me, what Jason's talking about is a huge thing. I have some patients doing excellent. Tro, I don't know if you've experienced this with the fasting method, but if you can get someone doing a 36 to 72 hour fast, my ketones are through the roof, my energy, my focus, inflammation, everything's better. There's no doubt than being on a ketogenic diet straight. For me personally, but I'm an insulin resistant person. But if I have a 23-year-old triathlete, they're going to have a different need. So I think when we have more tools, we could adjust and change a lever here and there to see what the result is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in like at least, you know, trying one extended fast, you know, at least once or twice a month, just seeing what happens. I think it's one of the last levers we'll put. Most people coming to us struggle with food relationship. So you don't want to push them into fasting. If, you know, sometimes we get people who are experts at fasting and they're, you know, they need to learn how to eat. So
yeah,
once you have eating down, I agree with you. There's something to getting those ketones higher, fasting. I do think once a week is a good sweet spot, you know, especially on an off day. But I think what you're all, you know, what's going on here is, you know, none of us are in a silo. We're all a community. And this is why the SMHP is so important. This is why, Brian, you know, we got to get you looped in more, and Vic's already, you know, a member, and Sako, we got to get you to be a member. It's because, you know, we can't go to the AAFP. Sorry, Jeff Gerber, but the AAFP takes money from Coca-Cola, you know, and we can't really go to the ACLM because they said that, you know, you can't eat meat. You know, you can't eat meat. So where exactly do we all go, right? And this is why we made the Society of Metabolic Health Practitioners, because we need to get, this community needs to grow. It can't just be, you know, Atkins is here and, you know, Volek is there and Brian Lenskis is there. And, you know, we got to figure out a way to work together. My hope is, one of my hopes is one day, you know, Brian, you know, comes and says, Tro, let's conquer the United States. That's what I'm hoping. Okay. And then once we conquer,
just give me the Southwest, man. You take the East part, I'll take the Southwest.
Listen,
and we got this, man.
We'll take care of all of it, because employers are looking for what we do, and they're looking for it in every state. So, and then the other thing is when are we going to go to Canada? That's what I want to talk about, because we already have our Canadian team right here, you know, and we have a Canadian doc. We got to get her on, the Meta Health doc. You know, and Dr. Tallien, we got to get her on one day, because I think, you know, we can do some great things in Canada as well. So what do you guys say to the people listening, you know, the healthcare executives that may be listening? How can we bring, you know, metabolic health to Canada?
We'll be talking soon, Tro. That's why I called you a few times waiting for you to, you know, return that. I had some conversation with Dougie actually in Boca. And so I also reached out to a few doctors in Canada to try to see if we can start something moving. And I mean, Tallien was there when we had a chat with Doug as well. So let's see. I mean, I'm willing to put in the work to try to put a team together. And obviously, I can do lots of things, but I'm not a doctor at the end of the day. So we need some doctors on that team. We need dietitians.
Listen, Brian, after you go to Kansas, you want to make it stop in Montreal and just set up a metabolic clinic?
If they let me in the country, I'll come.
I don't think they'll let you.
I think there's good stuff coming. I think we can hopefully one day, I visualize maybe one day having that, the SMHP chapter in Canada, but it would be a dream come true with that. And I think it's totally doable. And anyways, we'll be talking in the near future, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and we just we got to get together and figure this stuff out. Yeah, I've been negligent because I've been so busy. There's so much need out there, and so it's figuring out how do we reach the most people we can, and be able to learn from each other and say, hey, we'll bring you in as an exercise expert. This person is nutrition. But I think the big thing, and I'm so glad we're talking about it because I think it's critical. This impacted me. One of my patients came in, really, really bright guy. He goes, Doc, I know it all. I know it all. I know Jason Fung. I know what Ted Namath. I know it all. He knows all this stuff. He can quote everything. But he says, I can't put it into practice. And I think that's one of the big things is we educate so much, but it's like, okay, what do you do when your wife's leaving and you're stressed out? Like, what do we focus on out of those 5 things that the great Ben Bikman talks about? We have to nail one at a time. If you're stressed out like crazy, okay, let's try to get the sleep right. Let's try to get the exercise right. Let's see if we can, what can we tweak in you and what little changes can we make that are going to make that impact over time? Because it's frustrating as heck is when you're trying to do your best and you're just stressed out. I'm telling you, this is going to be true, Tro. You can mark this one. Stress is the biggest factor, I think. I think we already know stress is the biggest factor of falling off. But also I have patients, when they get their stress under control, everything else changes. Everything else changes. It becomes an easy road when you're not stressed and tense and worried and hate the world and, not engaging with people.
I had a patient who just came to me and, we talked about all eating and he just was so much pent up emotions, father of 5, and, he's got multiple businesses. A lot of people rely on him. And I told him, I'm like, the stress is killing you. I was like, you know what to do. You can do it. I was like, you can't serve 2 masters. That's it. I think there's a good book that says something about that. But the thing is that, he took it to heart. He sold his 2 businesses. That was giving him the most stress. He comes back to me 6 months later. He's down 50 pounds. 50 pounds.
I see it all the time.
With me. He lost like 5-10 pounds over a year. Struggled. We made some improvements, but you know what? And he came back. He's like, "You were right. It was the stress."
Yeah, stress. And as secondary to that, alcohol. Those are the 2 big killers. You could be low carb all you want if you're drinking. And I've done the experiments and I failed the experiments, or I don't know if it was a failure for my health, but a success in proving. If you start having a few low carb drinks here and there every night, whatever, it adds up very quickly. So if you can cut that out and cut your stress, I think those are huge factors. But if you cut the stress out, it makes the alcohol easier to cut, because if you're stressed and you drink to calm your nerve, then it makes it a little more challenging. So, but like what you're saying, Sako, is getting the exercise right, the nutrition right, then the mood follows. Yeah. Right, all the time. And this was a confounder for a lot of us, is we all know that poorly controlled diabetics are depressed, but it was a chicken and eggs. Like, are they depressed because their sugar's out of control, or are their sugars out of control because they're depressed? And it turns out when you look at the studies, it looks like the sugars are out of control first, and then the depression kicks in, and then you don't care anymore after that. So you just let yourself go. So I think those kind of things. And I think another thing that's really interesting about exercise is a lot of people, when they're exercising and they're on track, they're like, well, I exercise it. I don't want to blow it. I'm on track and I'm low carb and I'm doing well. But once they hurt themselves, that injury messes with the brain, and they go out. I have just happened with a guy, one of my favorite patients too. He hurt his shoulder, and because he hurt his shoulder, he got frustrated. He had, all this stuff, and he had an 18-pound weight gain, but he's still 50 pounds down from where he started. So I'm like, hey man, it's a bump in the road. We got this. So, it's frustrating when you're in pain and you go, I want to do my workouts. I want to, like Tro was going through. It's hard when it's frustrating when you want to, make yourself better, but your body's just not cooperating.
Yeah. Chronic pain is another one of those factors, but
absolutely. And it's all going to be cortisol, and Tro, we're going to have someone on. I'm really impressed with Mindy Pell's Fast Like a Girl. And it's really from a hormonal standpoint. she makes some really good points. So I'm excited to have her on too to talk about this, because sometimes fasting is not a good thing. Like right before your period, if you're struggling, your body's telling you to put on some weight, and if your body's trying to prepare for pregnancy. So, and stress does the same thing. So a lot of women, when they're stressed or they're working out like crazy, they lose their period because the body says, "Oh, there's a lot of stress going on. Cortisol's high. Let's not get pregnant because this isn't good timing. Let's not bump up the progesterone and go that path. We'll go the other way." And so a lot of people don't realize the impact of stress, not sleeping, hating the world, worrying about everything, and that's why when I took heat too for talking about faith, is like, well, a lot of us deal with our stress that way and go, okay, I'm not gonna worry about all this stuff. God, you're in control. Okay, you deal with this, right? And so that makes life a little bit easier for those guys. And other people might be yoga or collecting rocks, whatever it is, whatever you find your peace at some point, and you're going to do better.
Sako, do you collect rocks?
No, I collect stickers, oddly enough, but yeah, collection regardless.
Listen,
do you have the scratchy, smelly ones, man? Those are the best.
No, can I just add something quickly from the youth standpoint, from a younger point of view? I think, and we touched upon it a little bit, I think there should be an overall openness and a willingness to try it. And to try it, I mean, to try changing the status quo, to try, because I see it every day. I'm sure you guys see it every day. The common person who frowns or looks down on what we do, but and then in return they complain about their lack of sleep or the amount of medication that they're taking or the amount of pain that they're in. But the minute you toss the idea of changing up your nutrition, it becomes this whole big culture shock, and it becomes a panic situation. I think the best thing I did was try, and was to be open, and it's okay to make the mistakes. I just want to publicly, at least from, and again, no hit to you gentlemen, but from a younger generation point of view, I do believe that there is a lot to learn in said, quote unquote, the older generation. And like Vic said, and you guys, the panel entirely, I think education and knowledge doesn't know age. And the concept of I know everything and what you're saying is wrong, where I was as a Jimbroni, I think that is a immediate no, and you should be able to at least be willing to experiment, especially if you've spent the last amount of years complaining about your not well being, overweight. The common issue I get with my clients is, well, my knees hurt, my back hurts, I can't sleep, I've been dieting, I don't seem to lose weight. Well, how about we address the finer details of the small stuff that you're not willing to change? And the minute there's an openness, to which so many from your patients and your clients, including myself, the minute you have that openness to try, I think the changes will be surprising.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing, and sorry, I had to take a quick call from a doc who's trying to reach me, but just to come back, those small changes and sometimes they're really easy. It's like, hey, I'm struggling, just to be a good doctor, you have to be able to reach people in their moment of need, right? When they come to you and they want to, get their health in order, when they want to review their lab work and they're anxious about it, when they're ready to make a change. And sometimes you have to overcome that shame and the guilt and the trying and struggling their whole life. You have to overcome that as a doctor so that you can reach them as close to that moment of weakness that they have. Right. And the thing is sometimes it's so easy. It's like, like they beat themselves up because they want pizza. Like, I got a way to make pizza. Don't worry about that. We got a way, If you're in Canada, it's called Vic's Mix, But the point is, or if you're in the States, it's Blaze Pizza or whatever. But the bottom line is sometimes we have such easy solutions. Like, you don't have to be deprived. You don't have to be hungry. You don't have to crave. We need to make it easy for you. And the big struggle is how do you get people out of that shame, guilt shell? Reach out for help, get help, call us, and we'll help you. And I think Brian's point was right, is, we have to be able to, be there for them. It's the how to. And that's what Vic does so well, is the how to. Sako, I'm so happy that you came on. And we have another person here, Bob, who says he was, you brought him into open arms when he went up to Montreal and did a dual workout. So, bottom line is we're happy to have you here, and we're happy to see your whole life changed.
Yeah.
You know, and happy to support you in any way we can. And if people want to work out and they're in Montreal, how do they find you?
So through Twitter, it would be under Reform the Gym Bro, as Vic has labeled me officially. I'm a new person. I have become a Reformed Gym Bro. Or else Instagram always works. Instagram would be my full name, so it'd be Sarkis.Chahinian. Quite complicated last name.
We'll get it. Jack will get it for us.
Yeah.
Okay. And where's your, you know, where in just so if people want to find your gym, where do they find it? You know?
So I'm in the Laval area, and to make it a little bit more specific, we'd say industrial. So in Laval industrial area.
Okay. Sounded very sophisticated, you know, industrial.
Yeah, that was very, very nice, man.
Except that it's surrounded by garages all over. So yeah.
Are we giving Vic the last word here? Or are we going to give it to Brian? Brian, you want the last word? You're going to
No, I think we should do a low carb Kansas City. I'm pretty improved. I'm pretty impressed here, man. I'm having fun, and this hotel is pretty awesome, and this would be a great. I'm like, this is a low carb. Doug Reynolds, are you listening? This is a good place to have it.
Listen, Doug's got New York to work out first, so
no, come on, in the middle, Tro, because we could all meet there, and I don't have to go all the way to New York and deal with you guys over there.
Who knows if they'll let you in?
Arizona. I'm voting for Arizona. That's a beautiful place, man.
Vic, you got to close this out. Give us the last words of wisdom.
Oh man, just, you know what, so super happy. And again, another, like Brian said, you know, another unexpected appearance, and it's always happy to do so. Couldn't be prouder of this guy. You know, kudos to him. He never, you know, like anybody else, there was bumps, there was struggles, there was, you know, like all of us. And he really turned the corner and took it to the next level, and super proud of him. And we're going to be doing a lot of great things together moving forward, you know, combining nutrition and training. So kudos to you, my friend. You've been an exemplary turnaround.
Yeah, and I think it's really saying iron sharpens iron, right? The more we could bring our skill set to each other. Tro and I complement each other because he has skill sets I don't have. I have stuff he doesn't have. And so you say, hey, together we're a better team. And so a lot of us are like that. One of you might know nutrition, might know exercise. Let's learn from each other. It's like if someone knows one language and you're trying to learn the language, they know it fluently, and you could talk and have fun, and you both learn and you both benefit. I think we have to build a community where, and especially for men, it's critically important that we have support, that we know we can go somewhere and be safe and like have fun and be ourselves and make fun of each other, but then lay down our lives for each other too at the same time, you know, and to build those relationships, it's so critical. So many people are on their own and they just can't get out of the pit. So Vic, if you don't reach out, like who knows where we all are? Like if we all don't reach out and start a podcast, and how it all, it's amazing how it all meshes together.
Absolutely, 100%. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Sako Chahinian. Thank you, Vic, and thank you to the Patreon supporters, people in our practices who have supported us. We really can't do this without you all, and that's the truth. And we try to give back as much as we can. You know, through research, through talks, through, you know, this podcast, and, you know, our mission is to basically make it so we have the practices available that we wish we had. I mean, when me and Brian started talking with each other, we were stuck in a system that didn't care about us. And now we're making those systems, you know, we've managed to make them successful and viable, and hopefully we can bring other doctors in and continue sort of continuing on excellent care. So I just want to thank everybody who's listening, because you've made this all possible.